In 1990, she conquered the US Open and became one of the most admired women in tennis. Gabriela Sabatini had beauty, grace, talent, and a style of play that made millions fall in love with her. Fans across the world adored her. Magazines wanted her on their covers, and sponsors lined up to work with her. She seemed to have everything a superstar could want. But then, at the height of her fame and while still in her athletic prime, she disappeared from the sport. No career-ending injury, no major scandal, no dramatic public collapse. She simply walked away. This is the real reason Gabriela Sabatini retired from professional tennis at just 26 years old. Gabriela Sabatini was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina on May 16, 1970. From a very young age, it was obvious that she had extraordinary potential. The first time she picked up a tennis racket, the people around her could already see the spark. She had natural timing, elegant movement, and a calm presence that made her stand out from other children. In a country hungry for sporting heroes, Gabriela quickly began to look like someone special, someone who might one day carry the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders. As a teenager, she progressed at a stunning pace. By the age of 15, she was not just competing with local players or junior hopefuls. She was already stepping onto the professional circuit and challenging grown women with years of experience. That same year, she captured the Japan Open, proving that her rise was no fluke. Her game was built around a sweeping forehand, smooth footwork, and an athletic elegance that made her look almost effortless on court. She did not just win matches, she made the sport look beautiful while doing it, and that made people pay attention very quickly. But Gabriela was not only known for her tennis. She had a natural charisma that drew people in without her ever needing to force it. She was strikingly beautiful, quiet, poised, and unlike many stars, she carried herself with a softness that made her even more intriguing. It was easy to see why the media became fascinated with her. She had the rare combination of elite athletic talent and international glamour. Soon she was appearing in fashion magazines, signing major endorsement deals and drawing huge crowds wherever she played. She became more than a tennis player. She became an icon. By the late 1980s, Sabatini had firmly established herself among the very best players in the world. She was not simply a fan favorite or a marketable face for sponsors. She was a serious title contender, capable of challenging the top names in women's tennis. In 1988, she reached her first Grand Slam singles final at the US Open, a massive milestone for a player still only 18 years old. It was the kind of breakthrough that announced to the world that Gabriela Sabatini had officially arrived. Standing across the net from her in that final was Steffi Graf, the dominant force of the era and one of the greatest players the sport has ever seen. Sabatini fought hard, but Graf was simply too strong that day. The loss was painful, yet it also marked the beginning of one of the most memorable rivalries of that period in women's tennis. For Gabriela, it was a lesson in how high the mountain truly was. She had come close, but close was not enough. If she wanted to become a Grand Slam champion, she would have to come back stronger. And that is exactly what she did. After the defeat, Sabatini returned to work with renewed focus. She sharpened her game, improved her strategy, and continued to build the confidence needed to challenge the very best. She did not allow one painful final to define her. Instead, she used it as fuel. Over the next 2 seasons, she remained one of the elite players on tour, always dangerous, always in the conversation, and always pushing toward the moment when she would finally break through on the biggest stage. That moment arrived at the 1990 US Open. Sabatini entered the tournament with determination and played some of the finest tennis of her career. She looked composed, aggressive, and mentally stronger than ever. Match after match, she moved through the draw with the kind of purpose that suggested she knew her time had come. And when the final arrived, fate gave her the exact same challenge that had crushed her 2 years earlier. Once again, standing on the other side of the net was Steffi Graf. This time, however, the ending would be completely different. Sabatini played with courage and control, refusing to be intimidated by the moment or by the opponent in front of her. She beat Graf in straight sets and captured the US Open title, the biggest victory of her life. It was the crowning achievement of her career, the fulfillment of a dream she had chased since childhood, and proof that she truly belonged among the champions of the sport. In that moment, Gabriela Sabatini stood at the top of the tennis world, but reaching the summit did not bring the peace many assumed it would. In some ways, the pressure only became heavier. Behind the polished public image was a woman very different from the glamorous superstar people saw in magazines and on television. Sabatini was by nature shy and deeply introverted. The endless spotlight that came with fame was not energizing for her. It was exhausting. Every tournament brought not only the pressure to win, but also interviews, sponsor obligations, public appearances, and constant scrutiny from the media. As her fame grew, the demands surrounding her grew with it. She was expected to be more than an athlete. She had to be a public figure, a symbol, a role model, and a brand. Her days were filled not only with training and competition, but with photo shoots, endorsements, travel, press conferences, and appearances that left very little room for privacy or emotional recovery. For someone who naturally valued calm and personal space, that kind of life slowly became suffocating. The public saw glamour. Gabriela often felt pressure. The cameras followed her everywhere. Every result, every expression, every weakness in her game became a topic of discussion. She carried not only her own ambitions, but the expectations of Argentina, her sponsors, and the global tennis audience. It was an invisible weight, but a very real one. Over time, the burden of being constantly watched and constantly judged began to chip away at her peace of mind. The life of a tennis superstar looked glamorous from the outside, but inside it could be lonely, stressful, and emotionally draining. On the court, another struggle was slowly becoming impossible to ignore. Despite all her gifts, Sabatini had one weakness that critics never stopped talking about: her serve. Technically, it was the least reliable part of her game, and under pressure it often betrayed her. Double faults began to appear in key moments, especially in important matches. What started as a flaw in technique gradually turned into a mental obstacle. The more attention people gave to it, the more pressure she felt every time she stepped to the line to serve. Commentators analyzed her toss, her rhythm, and her mechanics over and over again. Fans noticed it. Opponents noticed it. Most painfully, Gabriela noticed it too. It became one of those cruel situations in sports where the mind can make a problem worse than the body ever did. The fear of double faulting created tension, and the tension created even more double faults. It was a cycle that fed on itself. She worked with coaches, adjusted mechanics, and searched for solutions, but by that point, the battle was no longer only physical. It had become psychological. Every service game carried its own private war. She was not only trying to beat the player on the other side of the net, she was also trying to quiet the doubt inside her own head. That kind of internal battle can be far more exhausting than anything visible to the crowd. And as the seasons passed, those close to Sabatini could see the change. The joy that had once defined her game was fading. The spark, the freedom, and the pure love she once felt on court were slowly being replaced by stress, pressure, and emotional fatigue. Years later, Sabatini admitted that tennis had stopped feeling like a passion and had started to feel like an obligation. The life that so many people dreamed about had become deeply tiring for her. Constant travel, anonymous hotel rooms, long weeks away from family, and the non-stop pressure of elite competition took a serious toll. Instead of feeling inspired by the sport, she increasingly felt trapped by it. Winning no longer brought the same thrill, and losing felt heavier than ever. The balance had disappeared. By the mid-1990s, the emotional cost of staying in professional tennis had become impossible to ignore. She had already achieved what most players spend their entire lives chasing. She had won a Grand Slam, reached the top tier of the sport, built an international name, and earned financial security. Yet none of that could replace the peace she was losing. The world still saw a glamorous champion with years left ahead of her. But internally, Gabriela was running out of reasons to continue. Then, in 1996, she made the decision that stunned the tennis world. At only 26 years old, Gabriela Sabatini announced her retirement from professional tennis. Fans were shocked. Commentators were confused. Fellow players could hardly believe that someone so talented, still young and still capable of competing at a high level, would choose to walk away. Many thought she still had several strong years left in her career, and perhaps even more major titles to win. But Sabatini had reached a point where trophies were no longer worth the emotional cost.